My name is Lillian Moore. I'm 27, an architectural intern who finally thought she'd found peace in Evergreen Acres, the picture-perfect suburban HOA outside Denver. The drive-in was straight out of a brochure, manicured lawns, identical white shutters, and that big stone entrance sign that screamed, "Welcome home if you follow every rule." I just closed on my little two-story colonial thanks to Grandpa Walter's wire transfer. $480,000 wired straight to escrow last month, so I could stop renting and start building something real. Walter, the mountain developer from Stonebridge, Colorado, had always said, "Lily, you design safe spaces for everyone else. Time you had one for yourself." I unpacked in silence that first week, loving the quiet until the doorbell rang at 8 a.m. Sharp. There she stood, Karen Hargrove, Evergreen Acres HOA president, clipboard in one hand, fake smile dialed to 11. "Hi, neighbor. I'm Karen, and we just love new residents who respect the covenant." Her voice was sugar-coated venom. Behind her, her husband Greg, the board treasurer, nodded like a bobblehead, and their daughter Tessa scrolled her phone, already filming for her community influencer TikTok. Karen wasted no time. Just a friendly welcome packet. No holiday lights over 300 lumens. It confuses the deer. Grass at exactly 2.5 inches. And please, no personal flags. We're very unified here. She handed me the 47-page HOA handbook like it was the Bible. I smiled politely. I was the new girl. I play nice. Grandpa Walter flew in for Christmas Eve, his old leather suitcase smelling of pine and integrity. He hugged me on my new porch, eyes twinkling. "How's the house I got you, Lily? Settling in all right?" I laughed, still pinching myself. "Grandpa, the escrow cleared. Keys are mine, and I'm already sketching upgrades." That's when Karen happened to drop by with a plate of perfectly symmetrical sugar cookies, just being neighborly. She invited herself in, Greg and Tessa trailing like backup singers. Walter, ever the gentleman, poured eggnog. The living room smelled of fresh paint and roasted turkey I'd barely had time to cook. Karen perched on my new couch like she owned it. Walter, such a generous gift. We at the HOA always appreciate when families contribute to the community spirit. Walter's smile never faltered. It was for Lillian. Straight to her escrow. Juniper Lane property. Wait. No. 45 Evergreen Drive. Right? Lily. The room went dead quiet. My fork clattered. Karen's hand froze mid-cookie. Greg's face flushed the color of cheap wine. Tessa actually looked up from her phone. "What house?" I whispered. Walter's voice stayed calm. "Mountain gravel steady. The $480,000 wire I sent last month. Memo, Lillian Moore, purchase of 45 Evergreen Drive. Your mother always wanted you to have roots. Lily." He turned to Karen. "You helped with the closing paperwork, didn't you, Karen? As board president, you offered to manage the escrow details for the new resident. I trusted you." Karen laughed. That short, barking sound people use when they're cornered. "Walter, dear, there must be a misunderstanding. We were simply holding the funds in the HOA special assessment account until Lillian finished her internship. Pure formality. Taxes, you know, very complicated." My stomach dropped. I'd never seen an HOA account. I'd signed nothing extra. Walter's eyes narrowed. He pulled his phone, opened the bank app, and read the memo aloud. Lillian Moore, purchase, sent to Evergreen Acres, HOA escrow per Karen Hargrove's instructions. The silence cracked like thin ice. Greg started dabbing at invisible crumbs on the table. "We were waiting for the right time to tell her," he said smoothly. "She's so busy with her little drafting job. Little drafting job. I was in my final year of a master's in architecture, drafting code-compliant homes that actually protected people. Karen had called it a hobby in the last board meeting when she fined me $250 for a non-approved porch plant height. Walter stood slowly. The motion was quiet but violent in its certainty. He pushed the centerpiece aside, my one sad poinsettia, leaving a long scratch on my brand-new table. Let's get one thing crystal clear. That money was for my granddaughter. Not for your new community pool upgrade. Not for Tessa's influencer camera rig. Where is the house? Karen. Karen's mask slipped for half a second. Now, Walter, as HOA president, I manage all resident assets for the greater good. Where is the house? Walter's voice was stone. I felt the floor tilt. Memories flooded. The way Karen had helped with my closing paperwork. The way she'd smiled while I signed the thick stack she provided. The way my signature looked just a little off on the power of attorney form she'd slipped in. I'd been exhausted from moving. I'd trusted the nice HOA lady. Greg tried the dad voice. We're just protecting her. Young women. You know, bad with money. Walter's laugh was cold. Protecting her by forging her name and parking the deed in your wife's name alone? I had my accountant run the county records this morning. 45 Evergreen Drive, Grantee, Karen Hargrove. Sole owner. Karen's wine glass hit the table hard. This is ridiculous. Lillian is overwhelmed. She's an artist, not a homeowner. We were simply stealing, I said quietly. The word cut through the room like an X-Acto knife through tracing paper. Tessa snorted. She's always been dramatic. Grandpa, she's tearing the community apart over a misunderstanding. Walter looked at me, really looked. Pack a bag. Lily, you're coming back to Stonebridge with me tonight. This isn't a home. It's a stage, and the show is over. I stood. My hands didn't shake. I dropped my napkin on the untouched plate, turned, and walked upstairs. Behind me, I heard Karen's voice rise into that shrill Karen register. You can't just leave. We have rules. There are fines for. I didn't answer. I zipped my duffel, grabbed the one box of real blueprints I'd brought, and walked out into the Colorado night. Walter's rental SUV idled at the curb. Snow fell soft and clean. For the first time in months, the air didn't smell like Karen's lavender air freshener and lies. The flight home was quiet. Walter handed me a ginger ale and said, Rest, Lily. We start work when we land. 3 days later, we stood in his penthouse kitchen. Papers spread across black granite like a crime scene. His accountant Dennis had been busy. Wire transfer. Forged power of attorney dated 2 months earlier. My signature. Except the loops were wrong. Deed in Karen Hargrove's name alone. And the worst part, the special assessment trust I'd never known existed. $212,000 drained over 3 years for community improvements that somehow paid for Karen's new marble kitchen and Tessa's sorority dues. They hadn't just stolen a house. They'd stolen my name, my credit, and every dime my mother left me funneled through the HOA. The doorbell rang. Walter didn't move. That'll be our counsel. Morgan Lake walked in tall, sharp-suited, zero sympathy in her eyes. She looked at the papers, then at me. Lillian Moore, this isn't a neighborhood dispute. This is felony forgery, wire fraud, identity theft, an HOA board abuse of power. And they're not getting away with it. She clicked her briefcase open. We do not react. We act. First step, we lock down your identity before Karen tries to open another line of credit in your name. I sat down. My hands were steady for the first time in weeks. Outside, the Rockies glowed white and sharp. Inside, I finally understood I wasn't the quiet new girl anymore. I was the architect who'd found the fatal flaw in their foundation. And I was about to tear the whole HOA down. Morgan didn't waste time. Within 2 hours, I'd filed the federal identity theft report, frozen all 3 credit bureaus, and submitted the IRS identity theft affidavit. Every call felt like laying rebar cold, precise, unbreakable. Karen's fake smile couldn't touch me anymore. Back at Walter's, my phone started its death rattle. First Greg. Lillian, your grandfather is confused. This is just a misunderstanding. Call me. Then Karen, sweetie, you're tearing the community apart. The board is praying for you. Tessa's TikTok went live an hour later. Same blotchy fake cry performance. Except now, it was my HOA mom is being attacked by an ungrateful resident who doesn't understand community spirit. The comments poured in, Karen is a saint. That new girl sounds crazy. Morgan's smile was thin. Classic Darvo. Deny. Attack. Reverse victim and offender. Screenshot everything. We're building the dossier. While they flooded the HOA Facebook group with pray for the Hargroves, we moved. Morgan's demand letter arrived at their McMansion by courier that afternoon. Quitclaim the deed back to me within 5 business days. Repay every stolen dollar, or we hand the full file to the district attorney. Karen's counter was predictable. The next morning, my university dean emailed, Lillian, I received a concerning call from HOA President Karen Hargrove. She mentioned your grandfather's sudden cognitive decline and suggested a medical leave. Are you okay? Greg had also left 3 one-star reviews on Walter's development company page, calling him senile and unstable. Tessa's sorority sisters started a Change.org petition to protect our HOA queen. Walter just chuckled and picked up the phone. Gloria, schedule me with Dr. Harlow for a full cognitive workup. Expedited report. Then he looked at me. They'll claim I'm confused. We'll prove I'm sharper than all of them combined. I spent the next week in Walter's guest room drafting my thesis, Sanctuary Homes. Houses designed with real boundaries. Every time my phone buzzed with another anonymous, you need to drop this or everyone will know about Walter's 2016 project scandal, I added another layer of reinforced concrete to my model. Let them scream on Facebook. I was building something that couldn't be fined away. The flying monkeys arrived next. Random neighbors texting, Lillian, Karen has been so good to this community. You're being selfish. I forwarded everyone to Morgan. Time-stamped. The dossier grew thicker than the HOA handbook. Then came the escalation that made me laugh through the rage. Tessa posted another TikTok, this time in my old studio building, somehow sneaking past security. She grabbed my half-finished sanctuary model and smashed it on camera. This is what she's really like, destructive. The video got 400K views overnight. Campus security escorted her out. The disciplinary board suspended her. The community page exploded, but this time the tide shifted. People started posting old screenshots of Karen finding a veteran for a small American flag. Wait, maybe the new girl has a point. Morgan called at 7 a.m. They're panicking. Greg just tried to take a hard money loan against the house using your forged POA. I filed the lease pend-ins this morning. The property is now radioactive. No bank will touch it. I stood at the window overlooking the mountains and felt the first real smile in months. Karen thought she owned the neighborhood. She was about to learn the neighborhood and the law owned her. The final straw came when the IRS flagged 2 competing gift tax returns for the same $480,000. Karen had filed one, claiming Walter gifted the money to the HOA. The federal agent on the line sounded almost excited. This is looking like a beautiful case of tax fraud across state lines. Morgan hung up and turned to me. We're done playing defense. Time to schedule the public recording. Christmas Eve. County Recorder's Office. They signed the quitclaim in front of witnesses. Or the DA indicts tomorrow. I nodded. 1 year to the day after Karen ruined my first Christmas in my own home. She was going to sign away everything in public. I could already picture her perfect manicure shaking as the embosser slammed down. Walter squeezed my shoulder. Quality builds homes. Lily, not hashtags. We finished this. I went back to my drafting table. The new model was stronger, concrete core, high windows for light, but zero sight lines for nosy neighbors. Entry buffer that forced anyone who entered to slow down and respect the boundary. Exactly like the life I was finally building. Karen and Greg still thought they could talk their way out. Their lawyer called Morgan begging for an NDA and a private family meeting. Morgan's reply was one line: "There is no family. There is only plaintiff and defendant. See you at the recorder's office. Bring pens." I slept that night without checking my phone. For the first time, the HOA rules couldn't reach me. I was no longer the new girl apologizing for existing. I was the architect who'd found every structural weakness in their little kingdom, and I was about to bring the whole thing down. The 72-hour deadline passed in radio silence. No quitclaim. No debunment. Just more desperate posts on the HOA page. Prayers for the Hargroves during this difficult family matter. Karen even tried the church route. Pastor Brian left a voicemail about reconciliation and forgiveness. I let Morgan handle it. My only job was to keep breathing and keep designing. Then the hospital call came. Walter's assistant, Gloria, sounded shaken. Mild angina. He's stable, but he asked for you. I was on a plane within the hour. When I reached his bedside, he looked smaller against the white sheets, but his eyes were still sharp. "Lily," he rasped, "we finished the build. No matter what." Morgan heard, and her voice turned to ice on the speakerphone. "They put your grandfather in the hospital. Civil negotiation is over. I'm calling the DA and the IRS right now." 12 hours later, Greg himself violated the restraining order to beg for a private meeting. "Just father to daughter," his lawyer said. I looked at Walter's monitors and said the words I'd waited a year to say. "There is no father. Only a plaintiff and a defendant. He can meet me at the recorder's office with lawyers and a court reporter, or not at all." Their lawyer called back 2 hours later, sounding like he was reading eulogy. "They accept all terms. Unconditional surrender. But I added one condition of my own. Not in an office. Not private." They signed a quitclaim, the apology, and hand over the checks at the Stonebridge County Recorder's office. Public. Witnessed. Recorded. Exactly 1 year later. Christmas Eve. 5 p.m. Morgan laughed for the first time. Poetic. Done. The day arrived cold and bright. The recorder's office smelled of old paper and floor wax. Fluorescent lights buzzed. People rushed to file last-minute deeds before the holiday. At the front table reserved for us, Morgan laid out the 5 color-coded stacks, the wire transfer, the forensic signature report proving forgery, Walter's clean cognitive evaluation, the full bank ledger showing every stolen dollar, and finally the notarized apology letter Karen and Greg had been forced to write. Then they walked in. Karen's oversized sunglasses couldn't hide the tremor in her hands. Greg's expensive coat hung off him like a costume 2 sizes too big. Tessa trailed behind. No phone, no performance, just hollow eyes. They looked like ghosts haunting their own funeral. The clerk's voice boomed, bored and official. Recording document 2024-998C. Quitclaim deed for 45 Evergreen Drive. Grantor, Karen Hargrove. Grantee, Lillian Moore. Karen flinched at her own name. Morgan stood. As part of this public recording, we are attaching the full evidentiary file to the permanent record. One by one, she placed the exhibits on the table. Each thud of paper felt like a nail in their coffin. The room went silent. The line of impatient residents stopped complaining and started watching. Karen's hand shook so badly her lawyer had to steady the pen. The cheap ballpoint skipped across the paper. A tiny sob escaped her throat as she scrawled her name. The clerk inspected, nodded, and slammed the heavy embosser down. Thud. Received and recorded. Morgan slid the certified copy across to me. My name. My house. Real. Then she turned to the Hargroves and served the permanent no-contact order, 100 yards. No third-party contact. Violation equals immediate arrest. Greg tried one last whisper. Lillian were family. Walter's hand, still trembling from the angina, came down on mine. His voice filled the room. Family doesn't forge signatures. Greg, family doesn't steal from their own. The old town hall clock struck 5. Christmas Eve. Morgan nodded. We're done. We walked out into the crisp air. Snow had just stopped falling. Church bells played carols across the square. I held the deed like it was the first real foundation I'd ever owned. My phone buzzed, the Northview Design Fellowship email. Full funding. Effective immediately. My Sanctuary Homes project, the one built on real boundaries, had won. I looked at Walter. He smiled, tired but proud. You finished the build. Lily. I turned my phone off. For the first time, the notifications couldn't reach me. Karen's kingdom of fake smiles and absurd rules was over. The community page was already exploding with a Gazette article Morgan had fed them. HOA president exposed in $480,000 forgery scheme. Neighbors who once prayed for her were now posting screenshots of every ridiculous fine she'd ever issued. Tessa had to get a retail job. Greg's development contracts were terminated. Karen's charity boards quietly removed her name. The marble kitchen she'd paid for with my stolen education trust money was now just expensive tile in a house they could no longer afford. I moved back into 45 Evergreen Drive, my house, 2 weeks later. The first thing I did was plant a small American flag on the porch. No fine came. The new HOA board, elected after the scandal, repealed half the ridiculous rules in their first meeting. Illy, my quiet architecture partner, helped me hang the first real curtains. We laughed about cantilever physics and bad coffee while the mountains glowed outside my window. For the first time, the house felt like mine, not because of the deed, but because the boundaries were finally real. I stood on that porch on a quiet January morning, coffee in hand, and breathed air that belonged only to me. Somewhere across town, Karen was probably staring at her empty bank account and the new for sale sign on her McMansion. I raised my mug in a silent toast. To every quiet resident who ever bit their tongue while a Karen in power rewrote the rules. To every architect who finally found the fatal flaw. And to every grandfather who taught us that quality, not control, builds homes that last. The snow was clean. The grass was whatever height I wanted. And for the first time in my life, I was exactly where I belonged. Thank you for listening to my story. Where are you watching from? Drop in the comments. I read every single one. If this HOA Karen meltdown gave you the satisfaction, I hope it did. Smash that like button. Subscribe for more real neighborhood justice stories. And hit the bell so you never miss when another tyrant gets exactly what they deserve. I never thought I'd thank an HOA scandal for teaching me the most important lesson of my career. But here we are, after the recorder's office. The entire Evergreen Acres community changed overnight. The old board resigned in disgrace. A new election was called within 30 days, and I ran for treasurer on a platform of transparency or else. I won by a landslide. The first order of business? I personally shredded the 47-page handbook and replaced it with a 1-page document. Don't be a jerk. Respect your neighbors. That's it. Karen tried one last desperate move. She showed up at the first new board meeting wearing her Sunday best and a martyr expression. I only ever wanted what was best for the community, she said. Voice trembling for the cameras, she tipped off. The room, packed with residents who'd been fined for everything from excessive holiday cheer to non-compliant mailbox color, erupted in laughter. One neighbor stood up. Best for the community or best for your kitchen remodel? Karen. The meeting was live-streamed. The clip of her face crumbling went viral with the caption, "When the HOA Karen meets consequences." Greg's consulting gigs dried up. Every developer in the state had seen the Gazette article. Tessa dropped out of her influencer game and now works retail. Last I heard, she was actually good at it once she stopped performing. I kept my promise to Walter. I finished my thesis, presented sanctuary homes at the spring symposium, and won the fellowship. My first funded project? Designing low-cost, boundary-focused housing for domestic violence survivors. Houses that literally cannot be entered without consent. Every time I stamp a set of plans, I think of that forged power of attorney and smile. Eli and I moved in together 6 months later. He still teases me about my aggressive cantilevers, but he also helped me install the reinforced steel security door, the one that makes delivery drivers actually wait for me to buzz them in. We planted a garden. We hung Christmas lights exactly as bright as we wanted. And every December 24th, we pour 2 ginger alesh, toast Grandpa Walter, and laugh about the night an entire HOA empire collapsed because one quiet architect refused to stay in the attic of someone else's expectations. Sometimes former neighbors still message me. I can't believe we let her run everything for so long. I always reply the same way. You didn't let her. You just hadn't met the right person willing to read the fine print yet. The house at 45 Evergreen Drive is no longer just a property on the county rolls. It's a home. My home. The grass grows whatever length the seasons decide. The flag flies every day. And if you drive past on a quiet evening, you might see me on the porch, coffee in hand, blueprints on the table, designing the next safe space for someone who needs it. Because I learned the hardest way possible that real safety isn't granted by a board president. It's built, one honest signature, one reinforced wall, one public record at a time. And if there's any Karen out there still clutching her clipboard and her fake smile, remember this. Somewhere there's a quiet resident with a grandfather who wired the money, an attorney who doesn't blink, and a set of plans that will outlast every ridiculous rule you ever invented. We're not tearing the community apart. We're finally building it right. 1 year later, on the exact anniversary, I received a single envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a torn page from the old HOA handbook, the section about proper holiday lighting circled in red with a shaky note. You win. I laughed so hard Eli came running from the kitchen. We framed that page and hung it in the hallway right next to my framed quitclaim deed. Every guest who sees it asks the story. I tell them the short version. Once upon a time, an HOA Karen tried to steal my grandfather's gift. She forgot I was an architect. I know exactly how to expose a structural collapse. Walter flew in for the second Christmas. His angina is managed. His cognitive report still glowing. He stood on my porch, looked at the flag, the lights, the garden, and simply said, "You built it, right? Lily." The new HOA board threw a community block party. No fines. No clipboard. Just neighbors who finally talk to each other instead of about each other. Karen's old house sold to a young family from out of state. I heard they immediately planted a giant flag and painted their shutters whatever color they wanted. Good for them. Sometimes I still drive past the old Hardrow McMansion. The marble kitchen is gone. New owners ripped it out. The for sale sign is long gone. And every time I pass, I feel the same quiet satisfaction. Not revenge. Exactly. But the deep structural piece of knowing the foundation is finally honest. My fellowship project broke ground last month. Sanctuary Homes, the first prototype, stands on a quiet lot outside Denver. High windows, reinforced core, entry buffer that forces every visitor to slow down and announce themselves. The first resident moved in yesterday. A woman who told me, through tears, I finally feel like I can say no and the walls will back me up. I cried in my car afterward, not because of the past, but because the past had given me the blueprint for something better. Grandpa Walter and I have a new ritual. Every Christmas Eve we sit on my porch with ginger ale, and he asks the same question. How's the house I got you? I always answer the same way. It's mine. Grandpa. Every brick. Every boundary, every single rule that actually protects people instead of controlling them. He smiles that mountain smile and clinks his glass against mine. That's my architect. And somewhere across town, in whatever rental Karen landed in, I hope she hears the same wind I hear, the one that doesn't carry her voice anymore, the one that finally carries mine. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. If you've ever been fined for breathing wrong by your local Karen, or if you're the quiet one still gathering evidence, know this. The recorder's office is always open on Christmas Eve. The embosser is heavy. The truth is heavier. And justice, real justice, sounds exactly like that beautiful final thud. Now go check your own HOA handbook. Flip to page 1 and ask yourself, whose name is really on the deed? I'll see you in the comments. Stay safe out there. Build strong. And never, ever let them manage your escrow.